The British people have voted to leave the European Union, and their will must be respected.
Other major story tonight, the global aftershocks after that vote in Britain, and for so many around the world, a stunning result.
This referendum
deciding to leave the European Union.
This result to leave is monumentous, a political earthquake with the financial ramifications.
The ayes to the right, 202. The noes to the left, 432.
Mr. Speaker, the House has spoken and the government will listen. It is clear that the House does not support this deal, but tonight's vote tells us nothing about what it does support.
It's the worst deal in history to me.
Latest on what they're calling Brexit.
Brexit.
Brexit really involves Britain's exiting from the European Union, which we've been a member of now since the early 1970s, and it was precipitated by a referendum in 2016, which was called by the Conservative Prime Minister David Cameron.
They think that they should be better alone.
But it's very hard to be objective about it because everybody feels very strongly, is very emotional about it. And I felt devastated when the result came out.
The first thing you need to understand is that this groundswell towards Brexit is both a direct and indirect consequence of the banking crisis back in 2006 through to 2008. And as a direct result of that, economic policies were introduced, which we call austerity policies, which cut back a lot of health and social security benefits, which hit the poorest people hardest. You would say the major advantages of leaving the EU, being able to have more control over your borders in terms of immigration, not being subject to European Union law, having more sovereignty. I think those are the main, arguments for, leaving the European Union.
Being both Spanish and British is very interesting to see what the British people think about the European Union and stuff. I do see the European Union as it has flaws, a lot of flaws, like every single system in the world. No democratic system in the world is flawless. I wish it was, but I do think that the European Union, with this, the past 3 changes with the UK leaving, not leaving, leaving, not leaving, which I think they might leave actually, there needs to be a change on how the European Union works.
I think that people think that we'll gain independence and we'll gain freedom to write our own laws and things like that.
If you run a major industry that that necessitates seamless delivery of parts and supplies from the European Union, like car manufacturers, if everything's held up at the border with endless paperwork and delay, you can't run your operation smoothly, so you'll probably relocate your operations to something to a place within the European Union where you don't have those problems.
We have already seen that people are going like crazy going into the supermarkets to get food, medicine, because most of the vegetables that you see in the supermarkets, like Sainsbury's and Tesco's, they come from the EU, they come from Italy, Spain, like vegetables and stuff. The UK cannot produce that. So that will be the first impact I see if there's no deal. Economically, the UK will lose, in my opinion, as the EU is the biggest trade partner. So with no deal, that means that the EU and the UK have to start from zero, from scratch, a trade partnership, which, as an example, Canada took 6 years to finance that deal, which is mental, and the UK does not have 6 years in order to deal with that trade partner. So I will see a even bigger slowdown in economic growth, and I'm an economist, and perhaps in 2 years' time, because of the business cycle, there will be a recession, which the UK might get impacted for, even more. It all depends on the deal. What made people go to one side is those lies and those fake news about, Polish, like an example, the Polish people taking the British jobs, or for example, Spanish people, French people, why they're taking our jobs, or we should be able to stop these European Union people, because there's a lot of people from the EU here.
I know that universities are preparing for the worst case scenario, which is a no deal. And even in a best case scenario, I know that they're still preparing for their sort of, for instance, like their student body to become 50% less.
A lot of it, quite frankly, was xenophobic. You know, I mean, it was tapping into general kind of xenophobia and outright racism, which was aimed at people who were regarded as foreigners. The irony is that what will probably happen if we leave the European Union, and that's not entirely sure yet, is that Britain will have to import more labour from outside of the European Union. They'll actually have even less in common with us culturally.
I think also that the generation that voted for it can remember a time when we weren't in the EU, and they look on that nostalgically, and I think that they think that we'll go back to that, which is not the case.
We were told that it would be very, very easy to leave the European Union, that the European Union would be begging us to stay.
It is clear that the House does not support this deal.
It looks like the worst deal in history to me.
The proposition, which is the same or substantially the same, may not be brought forward again during the same parliamentary session.
In March 2017, I triggered the Article 50 process for the UK to exit the EU, and Parliament supported it overwhelmingly. 2 years on, MPs have been unable to agree on a way to implement the UK's withdrawal. As a result, we will now not leave on time with the deal on the 29th of March.
She's got one thing right, though. The UK has slid into a crisis, slowly and surely over 10 painful years. And who got us here? This lot. This gaggle of obdurate, arrogant, stubborn, unrepentant, heartless bunch of self-serving arseholes who have spent the last 3 years trying to keep their useless, irrelevant political parties together.
It is an outright betrayal, because Mrs May now tells us we're not leaving next Friday, despite telling us over 100 times that we would be, despite putting a piece of law in place supported by 500 MPs that said we would be.
There may never be an exact figure, but today's call for a people's vote took over central London. The vast majority were Remain voters, but angry, frustrated and despairing ones.
It's the first time that politics has really hit on a personal level, everybody on a personal level, and come into our homes. I don't want to think about it. It would be so, I mean, I have a son, and I think it would affect him most of all. I think it would affect young people and hit them the most. And it's so sad because they didn't get a chance to vote in the first place. They were never asked what they wanted, and I think it's going to hit those people the most. And I don't know how, and it's terrifying.
This is where we are at the moment, and it's a terrible mess.
I just want this to be over because there's a lot of uncertainty and people are fed up of it, because we've been talking about this for the past, 3-4 years now, and it's getting tiring right now to just look at the news and just see Brexit or whatever. What are we not focusing on something else, like poverty or development economics or South Africa, Kenya, or what happened in Ethiopia with Boeing, for example? I don't know.
Because whichever way you voted in the referendum, most people just want the government to get on and deliver a good Brexit. And that's exactly what we are doing.